We're on day 106 of Ukraine's resistance. This is the Media Center Ukraine. We're starting our day with a conversation about what helps win the war, money, specifically the work of the banking system. With us today is Olena Korobkova, chair of the board of the Independent Association of the Banks of Ukraine. Pani Olena, hello. Hello? Pani Olena, the question is, on the one hand, quite simple, on the other hand, quite complex. What is the condition of the banking sphere in Ukraine? The banking system is working, which is good news, because if we look at the history of previous wars, the banking system would work for 2 days and then take a break. Um, we are, again, to remind you, the war started on February 24th at 4 a.m. First explosions, and by 9 a.m., the National Bank had a plan and new resolution of how to maintain the banking system. This was very impressive, and I would like to confirm this also in spoken words. All of the banks are sufficiently capitalized. We have taken 2 Russian branches off the market, and 1 Russian mega bank that had a chunk, but there was problems with it prior to the war. All the other banks are working. We have no problems. I would like to also stress that all of the deposits today are protected, defended by the state, and the state guarantees 100% of the deposits. This is a very correct step, I think, and as a corresponding law was passed, the banking system is trustworthy, and which people seem to understand. As of June 1st, actually the deposits on hryvnia accounts have increased by 20% compared to the 24th of February. The banks continue to refill the ATMs and tellers, and withdrawals are possible. You can pay at different stores. The lines at the ATMs lasted for 1 day, after which the entire world asked, especially international partners, so what did you do? Why do you not have lines? Because they had lines, for instance, in Poland, where our refugees moved, but in Ukraine we didn't have lines. I also would like to stress that in May, the influx of cash was only about 0.5 billion hryvnia. As far as numbers today, cash numbers today, in the 5 months of this year, cash flow has increased by 8.6%, and we had 681 billion hryvnia in circulation. This is by about 50 billion more than at the start of the year, although previously we had a clear trend of cash decreasing. We didn't stop the press, we didn't start the press, we didn't print any hryvnia. The electronic system of payment works, but it doesn't mean that, however, this doesn't mean that we don't have any problems, because of course we are working with our clients. Banks are connected to their clients, and the problems of the clients are also the problems of the economy and the banks. The economy is going through a shock contraction. However, the banking system seems well prepared, and this is thanks to the structural and systemic reforms of the pre-war period. And paradoxical as it may sound, it is also thanks to COVID, because during COVID, the banks really digitalized and did a lot of homework, which now allow many people to forego going to bank branches to open a card and open an account. Almost all of this can be done on your phone or on your computer at home without risking your life. The raising of the bank rate, we understand why this was done, but how will this affect the work of the banking system? Yes, the National Bank did raise the impact on currency rates, because we've seen we had 4 rates. This was extremely extremely bad. And now we see how the rates, the gray market and the legal market are approaching each other. So we're looking for the stabilization of we're looking forward to the stabilization of the rate. In which case, what is the dynamics of a deficit portfolio? Are people bringing money into the banks? Are people withdrawing money? Is the number of deposits staying the same? Could you tell us more? People seem to be bringing deposits into the banks. The deposit base has increased 20% since the start of the war. So the banking system seems to enjoy trust. The deposit rates will, of course, rise a little bit. We also expect that people will continue to bring their money into the bank. You understand that apart from, yes, of course, there's looting and things like that. So right now it's better. It's actually safer to keep your money in the banks. A question that may trouble representatives of the business: we imagine that credits will be very expensive. What's going to happen with credit portfolios? Look, we expect the following: there will not be a quick raising of the credit rates. We're even looking, as an association, we even talked about. We spoke to the stakeholders in the market that we're going to sign a memorandum of ethical behavior in the market, so as not to have one bank, one bank would raise the rates and take their clients from another bank, which would lead to distortions, to the fact that each bank's assets would flow from one bank to the next. Also, extremely important right now are state programs. We have the 579 program. In this context, there's been the agribusiness support program, and there was which enjoyed a lot of demand, and we credited up to 36 billion hryvnia. Over 80% of them are portfolio guarantees, so they were 0% interest rates. So this was very necessary. This really supported the sowing campaign. So the state support programs will continue. The rate of 25% doesn't mean that the credits tomorrow will be 30, especially as if the national bank puts in place stabilization triggers and they work, then by late July or perhaps by early September, it will start bringing down these rates. As far as consumer crediting, mortgages, etc., why this is interesting to us? Because there were some ideas even that perhaps there would be an amnesty, whatever, consumer credit amnesty or mortgage amnesty for people who have lost their property due to the war. What might that discussion look like, and what is the state, what is the condition of consumer crediting? Okay, look, truly from the start of the war, the banks did freeze crediting, particularly suspend crediting, particularly for individuals and mortgages. And this wasn't just the fact that there was, wartime combat going on, but also the mortgage needs planning for years, whereas the war certainly narrowed the planning horizon down to days, So the raising of the rates is a temporary event is a normal shock response to shock, and it doesn't support long-term crediting, but banks are starting to bring back consumer crediting for individuals with various protracted payments or series of payments. And now there's a state program. I can't tell you details now, but where it's being developed, it's being looked into. It's going to be a mass program that will help with new residential quarters. Of course, we'll also be looking into the destroyed and damaged property. We have many applications in DIA, about 170,000 applications in DIA. The banks are looking into what level of monetary loss this is. there are some ideas about compensating their losses to these people through long-term war bonds, like 20-year war bonds that may either become compensation for the lost property, or if there were no credits, then become kind of a down payment on a mortgage, on a new mortgage. But we have to understand that right now businesses are relocating. They're moving into more protected regions, safer regions, and of course there are also new jobs. There's new need for a new demand for new construction. So we've uh, had um, we've had conversations with builders who are prepared, construction workers who are prepared to do this, construction companies who are prepared to do this, and we really hope that very soon we will see some results. And then our final question: you said that the planning horizon has narrowed down, or it's practically absent. Nevertheless, how do you see the future of the banking system? Short term, perhaps a month or 6 weeks, and more long term, let's say up to the new year. That's a great question. I hope that the war will end prior to the new year. I really hope, and actually much sooner, and that we will be able. The banking system, the banking system is like is like a blood circulation system of the economy, and the banking system can facilitate the rebirth of the economy. So the fact that it survived this, the banking system has a lot of liquidity. The banks are prepared to credit, but you need, it's much like with the rates. We need people that don't speculate on the rates. Who cross the borders with a lot of cards. They bring currency, and without doing anything, they would make money on this, on these speculations. Both the banks and the clients and the state have to join their efforts. And the fact that our nation is united now is understood by the world. So the banking system in the nearest month and the nearest, let's say, to the end of the year, it should be stable. Will have liquidity. It will work. I hope that we will open new mortgage programs, and we'll start rebuilding our country together. Uh, Most importantly, I hope that the victory is as quick as possible. We believe that as well. Thank you. With us was Olena Korobkova, head of the board of the Independent Association of the Banks of Ukraine. Our next briefing is scheduled to start in a few minutes. With us will be Rostyslav Tistyk, coordinator of the Center for the Support of the 125th Brigade of the Territorial Defense of Ukraine, and Oleksandr Khoroshun, also from the 125th Brigade. Will be talking about the territorial defense. I will be talking about helping the army. See you then. I open the 106th day of Ukraine's resistance. This is Media Center Ukraine. We're starting next briefing. With us are Rostyslav, Tistyk, coordinator of the support center of the 125th Brigade of Territorial Defense of the Ukrainian Armed Forces of Ukraine, and as well as National Deputy of Ukraine, and Oleksandr Khoroshun, head of the Material Support Service of the same Territorial Brigade. Territorial Defense Brigade. Gentlemen, please join me at the podium. And the first question is, what do you have to tell us? Hello, Slava Ukraini. Thank you for this opportunity to give us this, for giving us this platform, to give us this opportunity to tell you more about our support center for the 125th Brigade, and tell you a little bit about how it started. Basically, work is ongoing, and maybe just a few numbers, give you just a few numbers of what we are and what we do. And what sort of results we've already, some of our accomplishments. I'll start by saying that I'd like to stress that our support center is based on the 125 Charity Foundation. It's a union of volunteers working with the same goal to consolidate their efforts to support our compatriots with for our victory. We're officially started on April 4th. 2022, and we have some accomplishments to share over these past few months. In order to strengthen the support of our state, we started forming territorial defense departments in Ukraine. The new 125th Separate Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine is responsible for the defense of Lviv. It was formed basically already during combat, and of course, this raised the need to quickly provide material support for the battalions. The main goal of the brigade is to supply this brigade to support the defense of our state. We understand that all of the efforts of the Ministry of Defense are aimed at supporting the detachments that find themselves in the front line and in the combat zone, and in order to support our reserves and our security, we have to consolidate our efforts to support these detachments that are responsible for the defense of important objects both in Lviv and in Ukraine. The support center for 125 is the so-called reliable rear, a solid rear for our defenders. Our team, I'll just continue here. Sorry, just a second. Right. So our team comprises 10 volunteers who communicate daily with our boys and girls and try to support them in everything they need. I would like to briefly say that we are also supported by some of the local businesses, and here are some of our partners with whom we have signed memoranda and with whom we have with whom we jointly pay attention in order to consolidate the acquisitions of important things, ammo, medications, etc., together with software, the Morshinsko Kuris, Lviv Holod Rotary Club, and other local businesses, Ashan, Blazenko, Naftogaz, and even the Ministry for Digital Transformation. I'd also like to stress that our center, how it works, we communicate with the battalions, with the command, with the head of the material direction, and with the commander, Artur Horbenko, commander of the brigade. We set priorities and we do our best together with our partners, whom I've already mentioned, to do our best to help our servicemen and women. So from from the most, we set a roadmap starting with the hardest objectives and going to the easiest, and takes about a week, up to a week, to provide the needed things. We of course lead accounts. We give all this to the battalions. Our principle is transparency. We provide our support directly. Next slide, please. So it's and a few words perhaps about how our basic principles of work is that is full transparency. We publish our Facebook page and our page of social media and our Instagram page. We publicize and report all of our work. We're very grateful to our partners who support us and the volunteers who care. We always report about all the funds that we've collected, that they're used according to the goals set in the fundraising. And every month we publish a report with outlining the results of our work. More about this report. This is our April report. In the first month of our work, we managed to, together with our partners, we managed to attract about 6.3 million hryvnia altogether. This translated into helmets, heat visors, clothes, medications, even technology. And thanks to our supporters, we've supplied them with a car. In May, we actually managed a little more. Of up to 7 million hryvnia. And so as you can see, we're working and we'll continue working. So I would also just, can I just have another picture? This, yeah, this is where this is a kind of a detailed infographic of what we've managed to attract in these past 2 months. The numbers speak for themselves. We have the necessary things such as bulletproof vests, medical collections, helmets, necessary medications, vitamins. We even have the so-called mini ambulance point. It's a small bag, 1 meter by 60 centimeters, and it's necessary in field conditions to provide first aid, including for, you know, with taking out bullets or fragments, to give quick operation if necessary, and continue. We have sleeping sets of sleeping bags. By the way, the Veneto has given us a unique opportunity to buy these sleeping sets almost at the rate which it took them to manufacture them, to provide comfortable sleep for our servicemen and servicewomen. And to conclude, how you can find us, these are some of our our presence on the social media, Center for the Support of the 125th Brigade, and as well the Charitable Foundation 125. On these pages, we fundraise, and together with we've managed to support people with bulletproof vests. So please follow our social media pages, and please join our efforts. Oh, sorry, just I will leave you with our QR code. It's a very quick. This way you can quickly see our. Yes, I can open the floor to questions if we have any. If we aren't, then maybe I have a quick question to Oleksandr. What would you say is the level of provision? What percent of needs are satisfied? Could you give us more details about that? Thanks to the Armed Forces supply and various organizations and the 125 Charitable Fund and other sources, we have a reasonably high percent of supply of all that are brigade needs, and the detachments that are working in the combat zone are actually 100% provided. Here we provide um, complete provisions, and we're close to full supply. There are some gaps, and which the charity fund helps us close in reasonable, timely fashion. So I'm very grateful to those who support our efforts. The war is ongoing, and many things are constantly needed. So we do our best to provide the to prioritize and provide the needed things, particularly to the detachments that are working in the combat area. So maybe then a question to both of you: how ought you to volunteer best, or how ought you to support? Let me explain. Many people want to help, many people want to get involved, but it's not at all clear that they're doing it right. And so they buy cheap bulletproof vests, but they're no good. They buy cheap tourniquets that immediately break. What would you suggest to people who want to help, who want to get involved? How is it best? How is best to help? How is it supposed to work? What's the best way? That's a very good question, actually. I kept asking myself that at first. How do you volunteer? How do you do it right? Because because you're not buying this for yourself. You're buying this for our defenders, for our heroes, and it's morale, their the fact that they have what they need in terms of ammo. It requires a lot of attention. So it's important to maybe talk to the specific person and what they need specifically. That they tell you their specific needs. So it's not just to say we have nothing, give us everything you can. No, that's not right. What's right is when a specific serviceman or servicewoman says, "I need a heat visor of this kind, night goggles. What kind do you need?" He said, "No, what kind can you buy?" I said, "No, I'm sorry, we can't work like that. Let us talk to your command, or with your battery, or with your battalion, or even brigade specifically. There are specifically people who know what you need, who know specifically. They write us the specs for what you need, and then we can look into this." The next thing we do is I look for the best price. We present an invoice, and then we have the money wired transparently. We try to buy this. It's very important that this procedure is agreed with who this is necessary for, and with their specific detachment or battery, or so, because you have all these buyers. Oh, we're abroad, we can buy this, we can buy that, and a lot of things, many things like that. But the question is, let's say you have a standard situation. So let's say you buy vision goggles, right? Where's it going? Well, it's not going to work with our weapons, right? NATO weapons are different from our weapons. So yeah, there are these aspects. So it's very important to talk to the specific person, um, because then we can also buy, let's say, a vest that weighs 12, 13 kilos, and it's simply a burden. It's untested. It hasn't been fired at. It doesn't have a certificate and other necessary documents that would um, be confirmed by the lab, saying that this has been tested and is ready to serve or perform its function as needed. So it's very important to um, start with a specific person, to state their specific needs, specific material needs, and then you can continue. But I also like to stress that please please verify who you're buying this through, because there's all kinds of people, there's all kinds of things. People disappear, people drop off the face of the earth. It's very important to work as close to the buyer as you can. Question? Yes, please. Hello, I'd like to ask you, this has to do more with my own experience. I'm from Kharkiv. I have a relative, I'm not giving any names, but who was in the Kharkiv Territorial Defense Unit. and they participated in pretty heavy fighting for the border, the Bilhorod order, and there was many problems because until the president paid attention, everything was pretty bad. You know, yeah, there were no vests from America because the fear was that they would be stolen. If something was stolen, there would be people from Chicago, people from Kharkiv who were in Chicago who were sending things to their friends, etc. But then everything changed. People started, the acquisitions started, and I remember we had this question from your experience, from the Lviv experience. Why do you not ask the head of the brigade when I say help us this, and they say, well, why can't the command provide this? And I say, well, look, we have a war, right? We're in the total war, and we cannot provide everything for us. But now we're in its fourth month, and then when you see an officer who is armed worse than an ordinary soldier, there are sometimes aspects where you don't know, should you volunteer, should you call the command, should you call officers that they start deciding, resolving these questions. And so what's the question? So what is the best step to do? How do you make yourself more useful rather than create more problems? I guess that is the purely human question. How do you? Thank you. I think that in this sense you have to talk to the administration, the command. In our brigade, all of our demands, all of our requirements are first presented to our supply bodies, and we discuss them with those bodies, with those organizations. And then when let's say we have a situation that they say, well, look, you're in line, but you're not number one priority right now, and we have paperwork that says that, and then we can say, then we can try to resolve these questions with the first priority things. We try to turn to volunteers or funds or other sources. And another thing I'd like to say is that um, everything the volunteers provide to the organizations, it has to be also supplied to the command or to their leadership. The reason being that this needs to be proportionally distributed to where it's most needed, because often what happens is that people send things to people they know. Well, first of all, the command doesn't have a full picture about the level of supply that they have, and then you have these kinds of uh, nuances. Where's this is if this is following a chain of supply, then you have a clear information. Everything can be taken in and provided to the servicemen and women, and then you have the full picture. You understand the need. You understand the level of supply. Okay, then maybe let me also specify that the high number of mobilizations and high number of volunteers have greatly increased our numbers of our number of forces who have revealed where things work and where there are gaps. So could you tell us what specifically should volunteers pay attention to so that they do not buy things that are already in good supply, or so that they maybe cover gaps instead? What are the main needs, main demands of our army, of our military? So just briefly, sorry, just to add to the previous question a little bit. Look, it's your moral obligation. If you feel a need of this, and you feel that you can, then you should, because what you're doing is normal. What are people doing? The servicemen and servicewomen are doing is heroics every day, and so when you're trying to put yourself in their place, which you can't, of course, but if you even try to imagine that, you understand the level of heroism, the level of service, and you want to support, which is why I encourage everyone to be involved. If you feel a sense that something is needed, please go ahead and do it. It's not a question of yes, of course, it's a good deed and it will come back to you, but it's not just that. It's contributing to our common victory for Ukraine. And to answer your question, what are the necessary things? I would like to stress that everything is needed, both like um, from polythene bags, uh, and many volunteers brought a lot of these bags, or a sapper's shovel, because we know many instances where the sniper would not crack shot sniper would have no where the defenses would crumble, and this is, which would expose our servicemen and servicewomen to snipers. So we understand that even little things are necessary, up to big things like helmets. They're very hard to get, not just for us, but also for when we coordinate for the Ministry of Defense. It's difficult for everyone in Ukraine. We have a catastrophic shortage in the world, not just for Ukraine, because our military amounts close to 800,000 people under arms, and of course, you need to cover every head, right? Uh, and of course, you know, God forbid, this can be also the kind of material where, let's say, there's a bullet or there's a shrapnel. Of course, helmets are not eternal. They need to be resupplied. They need to be renewed. So they're always needed. Um, heat vision goggles, night vision goggles, and sights, and some specific things that specific people are asking. Though those are always necessary. Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, we will wrap up. With us were Rostyslav Tistyk, coordinator of the Center for the Support of the 125th Territorial Defense Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and National Deputy of Ukraine, and Oleksandr Khoroshun, head of the material service of the same brigade. Our next briefing will be at 12:30. With us will be an unusual person, a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces and a Paralympian, Joseph Whitkey, um, who Hello everyone. We're on day 106 of the full-scale Ukrainian war against Russia. My name is Natalia Staroprava. With us today is Jeremy Locke and Joseph Woodkey, a veteran of the U.S. Air Force and Paralympic athlete. We will discuss their personal experience of rehabilitation and the system of rehabilitation, how it should look in Ukraine. Hello. The first question is, what is your goal? What is your objective with regard to being in Ukraine right now?
We really just wanted to come out here and try and share our stories as veterans, and as me especially after being wounded fighting in Afghanistan, and just when I seen what the war was going on and everything, I just wanted to be able to come out here and try and maybe meet with some of the veterans out here and share my story and tell them kind of what the rehabilitation process is, and how I was able to get through it, and answer any questions they might have, and go from there.
Також хочеться дізнатися.
We'd also like to know what do people say in the U.S. about the armed forces of Ukraine, and what is known about the situation with the war in Ukraine?
What's important to know out here is that there's a strong support for Ukraine and for its heroes that are out here fighting. They're fighting it's a very difficult time for you all, but the way that your countries come together, the way that everybody's stepped up and stepped in defense of your land, it's very inspiring, and it's something that you do see in the United States. A lot of conversations around the table, a lot of conversations at the grocery store, all over the place. You see support for Ukraine everywhere. So it's actually been an inspiration for the people of the United States. As we are in a time where you could argue that we are a little divided in the U.S., we are actually seeing the strength of your people coming together is very inspiring for Americans.
Thank you. The next question would be, what do you think should be the first thing you should keep in mind for in terms of rehabilitating people who have come back from the U.S.? What is the first thing you would have to think of in terms of setting up a rehabilitation system as well in the country?
Need to think of is getting as much support to those wounded fighters coming back. If you're able to bring their family in or friends, or even just, I remember when I was back at Walter Reed and just 21 years old, come back from Afghanistan, and not knowing what I was going to be able to do with my life or what the rehab process was going to be, and just having some of the guys who had been at the hospital longer than me just come into your room and kind of just be there for you, like morally. And for me, just like I said, being 21 years old and just lost both my legs, to see a double amputee walk into that room, it just showed me that, hey, this is possible, and that someday I'll be there. And that's another reason why I wanted to be here. If I could just show some of these guys that, like, hey man, your life's not over. It's possible to be up and be mobile, to continue in the fight, and have a real life, a good life still.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages that you have in a hospital such as Walter Reed, and for those of you who don't know what Walter Reed is, it's a military hospital in the United States inside Washington, D.C., and the way that it's set up, it is a sort of a one-stop shop. So even though you may have a physical injury, in Joey's case, a double amputee, when he gets there, it's already been coordinated for his family to be there. It's already been coordinated where he still has a familiar structure with a Marine that's there. There's veterans that are farther ahead in the progress, so they can be an example for him. But additionally there is support for PTSD. There's support for all sorts of other things, that all right there underneath that roof. So if you're able to go to one place and not have to think about driving across town or going to this other hospital to do this and this and this, if it's all under one roof, it's so much easier for these veterans and the civilians that are injured to focus on themselves and focus on their healing. So that's a really great way to set up, and that's what we recommend.
Друзі, нагадую, якщо у вас є
Friends, I would like to remind, if you have any questions, please raise your hands. We will come up with a microphone. Богдан Миколаєнко.
I want to thank you guys for coming over here. It's not the safest period right now. It's pretty dangerous, and the fact that you managed to accomplish so much with your life after, that particular incident in 2011 is inspiring for all the Ukrainians. And my question is a brief one. Going through all of those things, terrible pains, recoveries, dreams, ideas, and then rediscovery of yourself. You are a gold Olympic winner after all. It takes a lot of will and self-courage and motivation to go with it. What can you tell Ukrainian people and Ukrainian nation as a whole who have lost something that they may never recover from? How can we go on with our lives? Thank you.
That's
Це питання.
to figure all this out, and I think you just need to realize that the healing process is going to take a long time, but you have to continue moving forward and finding a purpose with your life, whether that be family or job or career or be an athlete, and just find a purpose and just do whatever you can to get there, and you got to keep that fighting spirit. And I don't know, that's
If I may ask second and last question, what was your inspiration to keep moving? Maybe it was simple thing, movie, idea, religion, family, friends, maybe patriotism for your country, because I ain't some kind of a weak guy to just lay down. I've been to Afghanistan and I'm back here, I'm American, What was it that kept you saying, I have this, I got this going on, I can move with this?
I guess that I've just always been a very competitive person. So just being able to prove to myself that exactly that, like I can do this. I can provide a good life for myself. I can keep moving. I can keep fighting. And then, like I mentioned before, being in a situation like Walter Reed, surrounded by other veterans that are going through the same thing as you. If one of my buddies learned to walk before me, like, oh, say he did that, so I can do that. If somebody learned to run, like, oh, he's running, now I can run. Somebody took college courses while they were there, like, oh, I can. If they're able to do that, I'm able to do that. So just keeping that fighting spirit alive, and just trying to always better myself.
Друзі, чи є у нас питання?
Do we have more questions? Please raise your hands. If, while I guess they're thinking, yes, please, would you please give the microphone to this person? And would you introduce yourself, please?
Romania. How long will you stay in Ukraine? And what was your impression? I suppose that you'd had some discussions with people. How did you feel when they shared their stories with you? And what were your feelings and thoughts?
Well, we just part of that. So we just arrived yesterday. Coming here, there's a donor event on the 10th that will be discussing potentially building a hospital similar to Walter Reed. So we wanted to come out here, show support for that, raise awareness of that in the United States as well. Aerial Recovery, which is our nonprofit organization out of Nashville, Tennessee, has been out here assisting Ukraine in different capacities since the end of February, early March. We've been helping with the movement of people who are in harm's way and getting them out of dangerous areas in the front lines in the east and bringing them back here to the west. So we have a lot of people that have been out here assisting and helping. And once I heard about this hospital planned from the mayor a few weeks ago, Joey and I are pretty good buddies, so I reached out to him. He's got the greatest heart in the world, and I knew that he would want to come out here and assist and help, and that's kind of where that ended up. And we'll be here for a few more days, but what we want to do too is help facilitate on the back end, back in the United States, for any visits or questions back there with hospitals that would be serve as a good model for the hospital out here in Lviv. So we're going to be assisting from wherever we can and however we can. So I think we'll be out here for a couple more days, but we've been back and forth helping wherever we can out here. We really support Ukraine, we support its people. Very proud to be out here and assist in a nation that has come together so strongly, as I mentioned before.
Маємо питання, будь ласка, візьміть мікрофон.
Not really a question, but
не так.
Of a situation. Now you guys came in, you saw the situation, you're in Lviv, and you know, the contrast is huge. There is a safe town here, you know, a lot of people coming in, and then there's places like Kharkiv, Donetsk, that are completely and utterly unsafe. It's like going from Europe to Africa, if you pardon my simplification. What do you think that the American population and the whole world in your military situation, because I have a relative who's military as well on the front lines in Kharkiv, I'm not going to say who he is for safety reasons, but the people tell me that there's a certain feeling of when you're a soldier, you're fighting, and you see the world around you, the way it moves. Sometimes some people feel pretty hurt, right? They even want to go back to war because they feel a little bit more justified living in there as opposed to their regular lives. How would you suggest Ukrainian population and Ukrainian people recover from the trauma of war, and how do military people have to cope with, you know, basically going back to their regular lives? Because as bad as it sounds, war can be addictive, and I heard that not from someone else, but from a very close person to me. Thank you.
That's a very complex set of questions there that I think people have been trying to figure out for hundreds of years. But it is true. It's when you get used to a certain environment, you get used to the brotherhood and all of that. When you're going into combat, there's just a certain different type of experiences that you feel when you do that. And granted, Joey and myself, we've never been put in the situation where we have to physically fight on our home soil and defend our homeland. We've always gone forward and defended our interests or those in vulnerable around the world. So there's a different complexity of it too here in Ukraine, I would imagine. Knowing that you are fighting for neighborhoods, you are fighting for family homes and all of that. So it's very admirable to see how you guys have come together, as I stated before. But I think you need to understand that no matter what you're doing, there are so many things that have to happen in order to have a successful war effort. And that's everything from ensuring that supplies make it across borders. It's from ensuring that when these heroes come back and they have a rest period, that they're treated as heroes and they're treated with respect, and allowing them the ability to stay within communities and to share their stories together, because you do need to talk about things to process them. So I think that's very important as well. But you just need to understand that no matter what you're doing, like, you are assisting. And for us, we've kind of hung up our rifles, as we would say. But when I was out and serving in Iraq and Syria, I would see the human effect. I would see all the population and the locals that were affected by the fighting. They wanted nothing to do with what was going on. They didn't want their houses destroyed, much as here. And that wasn't our mission out there. Our mission was to protect our soldiers and protect our mission. And so being able to see all those people that are affected by, essentially, we're part of the fighting, it's something that really rang like a chord in me. So it's a terrible situation, what's going on here in Ukraine, but it's nice to be able to come in and use our military expertise and help the humanitarian side and assist the people, because the way we feel is you have your combatant soldiers going forward, and a lot of times they have to leave their family, their wives and kids and elderly alone, and it's so terrible that they have to do that. But if we're able to come in and help them not think about that as much as possible, we can come help in and use our military expertise to safely move people around, and knowing that their father, their brother, their grandfather, whoever is out fighting, but that's one thing less for them to worry about. So I encourage all of you back here that when you do see refugees coming in and any of that, you assist them in any way, because they're knowing that they're safe helps your combatants out there defending your country. That's what we're trying to do on our end.
На підсумок хотілося б підкреслити, що в Україні
To conclude, I would like to stress that Ukraine also has an international battalion, international delegation that includes US representatives. So I wanted to ask, why, as Americans, why does it matter for you to participate in combat together and defend Ukraine together with Ukrainians?
speak necessarily for those that are actually coming out and doing combat, because that's not what I'm doing, but I have a sense of like why they would want to do that. And what it really comes down to is what's right and wrong. We feel, and I imagine they feel as well, that the right thing to do here is to protect Ukraine and to protect its people. There was a unprovoked attack of a sovereign nation. As you know, with all the history, there's a lot of agreements that had been made in the past that this would not happen, and has happened, and it's a complete injustice. So I think that where you can use your skills in this world to be effective and to help people, you have that responsibility to use those skills in this world to be effective and help people. So I think wherever you feel called to go and you're on the side of right, that's what you need to do. And that's what I think these foreign fighters and foreign humanitarians are doing out here in Ukraine.
Дякую. З нами були Джеремі Лок.
Thank you very much. With us were Jeremy Locke and Joseph Woodkey, representatives of an U.S. NGO, Aerial Recovery. Thank you very much for being here. I would like to stress that our next meeting is at 1300. With us will be the head of the Zaporizhzhia Military Administration, Oleksandr Starukh. See you. Hello, my name is Natalia Staropravo. We're continuing our briefing, and with us at Media Center Ukraine, we have the head of the Zaporizhia Oblast Military Administration, Oleksandr Staroch. Hello, sir. My first question to you. We had information yesterday that Russians are withdrawing from Melitopol and moving to the Kherson direction. What does this tell us? Look, according to the information that we have, the question is not the troops that are amassing enemy troops, but in some communities late last week, they have taken away the National Guard and representatives of other structures of the occupier that were controlling and terrorizing the local population. So they've removed them from checkpoints. They picked up and moved to Kherson, or at least in the direction of Kherson. In some communities from which we've seen this retreat, withdrawal, there's a simple rotation. So representatives of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic have come in to replace these Russian Guard, continue to terrorize the local population. As far as the military situation is concerned, the general staff, I think, have given full statements on the concentration of the enemy's effort in the Zaporizhia area. According to the intelligence, we seem to be finding out that Zaporizhia remains a priority for the Russian troops. How is the city, how is the oblast strengthening their defense? Of course, right now the main goal is Luhansk and Donetsk region. That's where we see the highest concentration of the enemy's means and forces. At the same time, Zaporizhia, especially the eastern region, in the latest months, we've had fights of various intensity, shelling. Of course, and the stronger the defense, the fewer chances the enemy has to make any progress, make any headway. Everybody will think twice and thrice before they see well-defended lines. Zaporizhia is fighting, is working, is continuing to strengthen defenses. This work is ongoing. After the visit, after the president's visit, the work has picked up. All of Ukraine is helping us, either with sending either timber or technology to build another line of defenses to save the lives of our fighters and to strengthen our defenses. Everybody is doing their best to defend their cities approaching Zaporizhia. Yes. Zaporizhia was a central humanitarian hub at the start of the war. Where people from Mariupol and Kherson came now? What is the situation now? Is this evacuation continuing? Are people still stopping in Zaporizhia? What is going on with the humanitarian situation in the region? As of right now, we were talking when the highest. We've had over 100,000 people come in from Mariupol. We were very proud, and all of us who were near the Donetsk, the Dnipropetrovsk region, and all of Ukraine helped us with transport, with ambulances. Since then, Zaporizhia has remained a shelter. We use the word shelter. This constant point. We cannot be a constant point, a point of constant stay, because we're close to the separation line. This is so, and from the start of March, this is where this line settled, where fighting continues. So we were a shelter, a temporary shelter. We weren't a staff, a headquarters. Our people continue to move out, not to the extent that we've had. We've had maybe 8,000 people per day. Now, yesterday we had 1,500 people leave the occupied territory. Particularly, the greatest number is leaving of our citizens, of our compatriots from the left bank Kherson region. They went through Zaporizhia. Almost 400 people yesterday went from Zaporizhia. These are people from the Kherson region, and they continue leaving in smaller numbers, also from Mariupol and residents of our region. Of course, we chose this model to let people have a rest, have a break, take care of some paperwork, and move on to safer regions of the country where it's calmer, where especially people with children will have a quieter time waiting out. for this story, with what I'm sure will be a swift liberation of our lands. Thank you. With us was Oleksandr Staruch of the Zaporizhia Oblast Military Administration. This has been all of our briefings for today. Please follow our announcements and